Hey everybody, happy Easter Sunday. Feliz Domingo de Pascua. All right, out here in the garage, doing a little bit of mobility work, doing some stretching, and doing some kettlebell work, doing some swings, and kettlebell goblet squats on the old Bosu ball. Not much to talk about today. Again, hope everyone's gonna have a great weekend or having a great weekend. Again, hoping you're having lots of good food. I had a great meal yesterday with my parents. It was nice. And then this morning I'm out here because the gastroc that I tore is a little unhappy the last few days. Coming back on travel last week on Thursday, did a lot of walking, carrying a lot of bags. And then it really just started aching. It got a real bad knot, right kind of in the middle of the sheath between the gastroc and the Achilles. So I've been like somewhat manipulating that, and that hurts really bad. Putting on a compression sock like an old person, but they work. And just doing some passive work. So I did deadlifts on Friday, which was passive work, and that does help. So I did some more today, right? So I'm doing these kettlebell swings. I'm doing the goblet squats, and I did some direct, like dynamic stretching, some calf raises kind of thing that I'm using the rack for. So it's feeling better now. I think, the stretching, some acu ball pressure, whatever that thing is, rolling some stuff out there, IT bands, some of the glute knots that will pop up. Just doing some basic, again, mobility, stretching, digging in on some muscles that need to be poked at. Stuff really works sometimes, gets you up, gets you moving, gets blood flowing like it needs to, and it does help with recovery. And I think one of the issues, a real quick sidebar on the science, as it were, I think one of the problems is a lot of times we like to look at these variables in isolation, and the same thing happens in my job as well. We like to look at variables in isolation when these systems are complex, dynamic, and nonlinear. So when we isolate a variable, sometimes it doesn't work so well, or the change in that variable doesn't matter much because it's not done in conjunction with other things. So sometimes, like when we look at, let's look at this stretching in isolation, does it do anything? Or if we look at stretching just compared to this other thing, does it do anything? Because I'm going to tell you, even if you look at some of these studies, like, okay, we're going to compare static stretching to dynamic stretching, and then we're going to do a barbell or some sort of workout routine afterwards. I don't know, man. I don't know if those are always right. Because today I was doing very light static, then into dynamic, then back to static, then into, like stuff like swings and stuff like that. So I'm kind of sliding between modalities as things just feel proper. I wouldn't say to go do static stretching and push to full range of motion when the muscle's cold. You kind of ease into it, right? You kind of nudge it a little bit, and then you up the frequency and the amplitude, as it were, right? You warm things up, you turn up the volume, turn up the frequency, then you do some other stuff. You do things like this. Kettlebell swings aren't working my calf directly, but they're requiring it for a lot of stability. So it gets a lot of work in as a byproduct. So just, one of those things where I have a hard time discounting any sort of movement involving muscle not being beneficial, or one being more beneficial than the other, because we have to be careful with things in isolation, because things don't always work like that. Again, the body is a complex dynamic system, and a lot of times the governing equations for those things are nonlinear. And that's it. All right. Again, happy Easter Sunday. Feliz Domingo de Pascua. Espero que você tenha ótimo fim de semana. Hope you have a great weekend. And don't forget, get into those gyms, hit those goals, and get swole. All right. Peace.